What an awesome week that we just had here in Ohio. Everything was really centered around that snow event. I had a lot of very cool encounters when I was out in the woods, and I can't wait to break that down with you guys. Now, where I'm located, we ended up getting a few inches of snow that stuck around for a couple of days, and that really impacted how exactly I wanted to hunt this phase of the season. Knowing that we had this bumper crop of acorns throughout most of the hill country down here, it's been very difficult to try to narrow in on consistent food sources, but with the snow coming in, I knew that it was probably going to be unlikely, on my property at least, that these deer were going to be digging through, looking for acorns, going underneath that snow, wasting all of that energy. Rather, just come down to that food plot that they already know is there. It already has that consistent food source, and it's much easier access for them. My initial focus was trying to catch one of these bucks slipping through following these does, because I get very consistent doe activity in my food plot before the snow, so I knew during the snow it wasn't going to be any different, and my hopes were that I was going to catch one of these bucks. Now, the beautiful thing about whitetail hunting that we all see time and time again, the bucks read the script exactly like I thought they were going to. The only problem was I wasn't in the tree when they did it. When that snowstorm came through, I had two different pretty good bucks that came right through that food plot, and it looks like, based off of the trail camera videos, exactly what they were doing was checking on the does who were over on the other side of the food plot browsing, or that got pushed back up the hill, because these bucks did have a little bit more of an aggressive demeanor to them. So I stuck around the food for the early morning until I had to get back inside to work, and of course when I went back inside to work is when those bucks decided to pass their way through the food plot, work during the day, and then I got up into the core part of my property for the evening sit, and that's when things really got interesting. This fresh blanket of snow completely changed the view on my property. So first off, I was just very excited to kind of get this different vantage point that I've never seen before, as this is my first hunting season on the property. This of course was my first snow, so I got to see a ton from my tree stand. One of the very cool things that I got to see during this hunt was actually a bobcat pass through. I've seen this bobcat on my trail camera quite a bit, but to be able to actually see it in person was a whole completely different thing. I'm definitely a hunter that I of course love filling my deer tags, but I'm just out there for the experience of it, and anytime that I get an opportunity to see something like that, I just feel so happy to be out in the woods. From there, had some more activity kind of happening in different parts of the property. I seen some does passing through, which looked like they were kind of heading down towards the food plot, and then right about last light, I had a couple of does exit the bedding area, coming right into my transition zone. The one doe was just nonchalantly kind of browsing, feeding her way through, and then the other doe that was with her was acting extremely skittish. So instantly my mind was thinking that there has to be a buck somewhere nearby, and I got my bow ready and I was prepared for whatever was about to happen next. And then shortly after this, I heard a couple of tending grunts coming over the hill right out of that bedding area, and then I seen the wide frame of one of the really nice bucks on my property. He started following those does right on their path. I ranged the does, they were at 22 yards. I went back off of the does, I had an opening at 25 yards, and I went ahead, I drew back my bow, and that buck was barreling right down into that opening, and he just needed a couple more steps, and it was just gonna be really honestly a slam dunk. And then that doe decided to jump away from where she was at, completely change her path of travel, and jump over the rock wall that I talk about that I use as a travel barrier, which obviously isn't a travel barrier in this case. And then of course, with it being the rut, that buck jumped over the rock wall, followed her, started heading down the hill, and there I was at full draw. Finally got to stop the buck after a couple of different vocal noises at him, but when he did, he definitely wasn't where I had my pin set for, and it was just too dark to get a confident shot on him. So I held off, waited for it to get dark, and I just sat there, and I was just really in disbelief, because this is the second very close call that I've had at filling my tag on my property this year. But I try to always look at the better side of things, and the best thing that I can pull from this scenario is just the amount of good buck encounters that I've had on my property in the first year. Since Halloween night, from this one single tree on my property, I've had 3 different encounters with older bucks, all of which I would be more than happy to tag, and they're doing things exactly how I'd anticipate them to do so. The encounter that I had on Halloween that led to the haircut on the buck, he came into that scrape and he was downwind of that bedding area just like anticipated, and then with this being that transition zone in between the bedding and the feeding area, I knew that in the early parts of November there was a really good chance that some type of rut activity was going to come into this travel funnel. And with all of these experiences in this tree, really getting that understanding of tying together that historical sign I found from the very first walk of this property all into all of these sightings I have from the tree, I have this vision of how I want to continue to build this spot and the rest of my property, and I have a lot of very big things in store for this off season, all of which I plan on trying to make as much content as possible for you guys, so that way you can not only see the progress on the property and see how things continue to build year over year, but hopefully give you guys some ideas on how exactly you might be able to improve your property, or if you're out there hunting on public land, what types of things that you can look for in a setup, so that way it is this type of high odd sit. But nonetheless, still have my buck tag in my pocket here in Ohio. Not going to be able to get in a ton more bow hunting before the gun season opens, so I'm kind of starting to shift my focus again on how exactly do I want to approach this gun season. The first thing that's really nice for me is that I know that I have a few different areas on my own property picked out that I'm going to have this incredible vantage point with how steep it is, and I should have some really good opportunities to harvest one of these bucks on my property as long as they're still using it. And then when it comes to public land, I know that public land gets a ton of gun pressure here in Ohio, and it's very common for people to be constantly moving and deer getting pushed all over the woods. So my plan for that is to try to find some of these way back locations that I scouted last winter that are these phenomenal A+ type pinch points. Probably going to be focusing on a lot of drainage tops right on the edge of some thick logging cuts, things like that. And I'm just going to try to get out there super early and hang out there for most or all of the day. So as people are in and out of the woods and deer are getting pushed around, these pinch points are going to be places that they're going to get pushed to. I've seen it on my trail cameras in the past. I'm very confident in it. So even though the bow hunting season in Ohio hasn't really came out to be what I was anticipating it to on my first year on the property and all these great bucks I've had on public land, I have very high hopes on the way for this gun season. Other than that, I am heading up to our family deer camp in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, something I look forward to every year. Head up there for the firearm season. As long as we have snow, I like to get out and I just like to follow fresh tracks in the woods. So I'm definitely going to be collecting and sharing some content on that with you guys. Hopefully next week at this time, I'm breaking down the successful UP hunt that I had this year. Now shifting gears just to share a little bit more about what content is coming your guys' way. This is the time of year that I really like to focus on that thick cover. I think that as the pressure continues to increase, as more and more people are out in the woods, those deer are going to start to gravitate towards that thick cover. So that's exactly what I'm going to try to put a couple content pieces out. I have a YouTube video coming out on Monday that talks about thick cover, that talks about pinch points, particularly in farm country, that you can focus on if you still got that buck tag burning a hole in your pocket. And I'm also going to do a more in-depth view of that video that you see on YouTube within the SKOOL community. It's going to be the actual stand locations, how I'm accessing them, and taking that full deep dive on all 4 of those pinch points, again, within the SKOOL community. And I just opened it up so you guys get a 7-day free trial into that community. By the time that that course is up and finished, you'll have full access to that so you can view the whole thing within that 7-day window. And if you're not a fan of the community, you can split out and you can just take that course with you. But if you like it, you can stick around and see what we have to offer. And one last thing, as some of you may know, I also help landowners design and develop their hunting properties. December is usually when I start doing those visits. My schedule is really filling up faster this year than it has in years past. So if you guys are on the fence thinking about taking that next step and improving your property, unlocking its full potential, be sure to get a hold of me. You can send me an email, nextlevelwhitetail@gmail.com. Drop a comment down below and I can reach out to you. But thank you guys so much for following along with my hunting season. This has been an incredible ride, a roller coaster of emotions, just like each and every one is. I can't wait to see how this story wraps up. I have this feeling that it's going to be extremely special. So best of luck out there, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.